Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 389 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger. It is of course Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, and happy birthday as well for yesterday.
Hey man, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm doing great, man. Appreciate you.
No problem at all, Eddie.
How about you?
I'm good, my man. I'm good. Good as always when speaking with you. I would sing you happy birthday, but I don't think you deserve it, to be honest, Eddie.
You're probably right. I don't think I do either.
Okay, my man. Here we go. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. I'm sure the listeners much prefer to hear about that than me singing. Anyway, let's start here at the Montreal Casino in Quebec, Canada. Over here we saw Christian Mbili. This was, by the way, last Friday, which was March 23rd. Christian Mbili now 24-0, a unanimous decision there over 10 against Carlos Gongora, now 21-2. It was for the WBC Continental America's super middleweight title. I expected Mbili to win. I don't remember if I thought it would be points or knockout or whatever, but yeah, I'm not too surprised by the outcome. I think, yeah, it's kind of what I expected. On the undercard, Simon Keane, now 23-1, a TKO for him against Eric Molina, who's now 29-9. I did say you can pretty much put your house on this one to be a knockout for Keane. He's a big puncher. I didn't expect Eric Molina to actually go 7 rounds though, so I didn't see the fight, but I'm guessing, like, credit to Eric Molina. Like I say, friend of the show, really, really nice guy, but he just doesn't have it anymore, and he needs to really hang up the gloves or at least consider it. But yeah, I mean, it kind of tells me that he showed a bit of heart there to go 7 rounds, and a lot of people have questioned his heart in the past. We've seen him go very early in fights, most of his knockout losses. But yeah, Simon Keane 23-1, Eric Molina 29-9. Moving out now to the Bolton Whites Hotel in Lancashire, United Kingdom. This one was live on Channel 5 in the UK. I'm going to start with the undercard. Sultan Zorbek now 14-0, a TKO for him in round 5 against Requen Arce, who I think may have been a late replacement, not entirely sure. He's now 15-10 with 2 draws. But the main event, Lyndon Arthur now 22-1, again friend of the show. Don't want to be too critical, but he got in there with a guy who had really late notice. I think he had about somewhere between about 24 hours and maybe about 40 hours. He didn't have 2 days notice, that's what I know. And Boris Crichton, who the late replacement was, manages there to go 10 rounds in what I thought was really, really, close fight, to be honest with you. And Crichton was down in the 10th and final round, and I thought, wow, that might have cost him the fight. But in the end, I think the scorecards were way wider than they should have been. And yeah, I mean, Crichton started the fight excellently and, naturally I think faded a little bit towards the end because, like I say, he didn't have much notice for the fight. And I think they said he was not even doing much boxing recently. He was doing a lot of hot yoga. But yeah, really poor showing from Lyndon Arthur, who of course blamed it on the fact that he had a late replacement change. He expected to be fighting a guy that was a real big puncher. And Crichton obviously wasn't a puncher, and it was just a completely different style, which I understand, but still, Lyndon Arthur really should have had him out of there, man. You can't let a guy jump in with you, on 2 days' notice and go the distance, especially if you're a light heavyweight who can punch. It's just not a good look, especially if you want to, make big waves in the sport and come again off that loss to Anthony Yard. Moving out now to the Tupatemi Air Force Central Stadium in Bangkok, Thailand. That's a mouthful there. Over here, Wisaksel Wangek, aka Surisaket Sorungvasai, aka the Rodent Eater on this show. I never forget the image of him holding a big rat about the size of his head and a big chunk of his side missing, and a mouthful from Wangek. It really made me think different about the guy, but boy oh boy can he fight. He's now 51-6 with a draw, a TKO in round 3 against Pipat Chaiporn, who is now 48-17 with 2 draws. Moving out now though to the Manchester Arena. Again, this one was live on Sky Sports. Let's start with the undercard over here. We saw wins for Samuel Antwi, although it wasn't televised. A points win for him against Omir Rodriguez. What else did we have on the card? Aaron McKenna with a points win against Jordan Grant, who was a real late replacement again. There was a lot of late replacements, and a lot of the times the guys didn't get knockouts. They actually went the distance. Aaron McKenna, another one, 16-0, 6-round points win against Jordan Grant, 6-3. Shaquille Thompson, I did say I think it would go to points, and it did. So if anyone jumped on that, then congrats to you. He's now 10-0, a points win over 6 rounds against Robert Talarek, who's now 27-18 with 3 draws. He was deducted a point in round 6 for a low blow, Shaquille Thompson, but still managed to win on the cards there, or on the sole card, which was the referee's card. What else did we see? We saw Karis Artingstall, a very predictable win for her on points over 6 2-minute rounds against Lindsay Buzinski, who's now 4-2. Artingstall now 3-0. Always felt that one was going to go the distance. I mean, it's an easy pick, obviously, but yeah, still yet to get a first career knockout for Artingstall. Callum Simpson, quite impressive actually, now 11-0. He got in there with Celso Neves, who's now 9-3 with 2 draws. Neves down in the first round, and to be honest, did quite well to get through that first round. He then come back, managed to get to round 3, but was stopped in round 3. Quite an impressive performance from Callum Simpson, who was a much bigger guy. You know, he looked huge for super middleweight Simpson. But one thing that really impressed me is that Neves in his very most recent fight went the distance over 8 rounds against Felix Cash. And even though Callum Simpson has got a good record with a bunch of knockouts and stuff like that, high knockout percentage, Felix Cash he's the decorated amateur. He's the guy who there's a lot of hype around. And for you to get him out there in just 3 rounds, or even early, I mean, I half fancied it would go the distance. So I think Callum Simpson's made quite a statement there, actually. He did have 1 knockout loss as well early on. I say early on, it was a couple of years ago now, to Padraig McCrory in just 2 rounds. But I didn't see that fight, and I'm not too sure what happened there for Celso Neves. But I remember him, if I'm not mistaken, I remember him kind of pushing Felix Cash quite close, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's a big statement there from Callum Simpson, who, like I say, looked about a weight class above him, really huge. I'm not sure if he just looked massive for the weight or Neves looked really small for the weight. But anyway, brilliant stuff for Simpson, now 11-0 with 9 KOs. What else did we have on the card? We saw Michael Gomez Jr. with a split decision over 10 rounds against Levi Giles. Gomez Jr. now 19-1, Giles 13-1. It was for the English Super-Featherweight title, which was vacant, now belongs to Michael Gomez Jr. I'll be honest, I didn't see much of this fight here, but I know that Giles racked up, I think, a few of the early rounds, and a lot of people were quite annoyed in the end that Gomez somehow managed to get it on the cards. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'll be completely honest. I'm just going to be, making things up if I start trying to talk about the fight that I didn't see. So it was a close one nonetheless, but I think a lot of people felt Giles did enough there. Elsewhere on the card as well, Fraser Clark, again, easy to predict this one. He was able to get a stoppage against Bogdan Dinu, who's now 20-5. Bogdan Dinu, I think, has been knocked out in all of his losses, so I didn't think he was going to be going the distance with Fraser Clark. Like I say, 2nd round retirement there. Bogdan Dinu didn't want to come out for round 3. Initially, I thought it was an injury that he was claiming on his elbow or something, but apparently it was his ribs in the end. But anyway, Fraser Clark now 6-0, another stoppage win for him. And in the main event, Lawrence Okolie now 19-0, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds, a defense of his WBO Cruiserweight world title. Okolie deducted a point in round 11 for holding. And yeah, like I say, takes David Lights O, who's now 20-1. I tell you what, it was an awful fight, and it's a shame because, like I say, I think we've been treated to some fantastic fights in recent weeks, and I seem to be saying that almost every week because, again, almost every week we're treated with a great fight, but this was us, being treated with an awful fight. And it was Lawrence Okolie that made it so awful, which is even more frustrating. It's not like he fought a guy who didn't come to fight or he fought a guy who was a spoiler. I think David Light tried to make a fight of it. But Lawrence Okolie, barely wanted to throw a powerful shot, barely wanted to let go of his right hand. When he did, which was only a couple of times, he had good success, didn't want to follow it up. He wanted to just keep pouring with the jab. He's a much bigger guy in stature, and he just wanted to keep pouring with the jab and just tapping him, honestly. David Light barely took a heavy shot all night long. Like, I don't think Lawrence Okolie could have knocked anyone out if he hit him with those shots that he hit Light with. It was such a bizarre performance. A lot of people were saying Okolie was supposed to steamroll this guy, knock him out in 1 round or 2 rounds. Maximum, it's going to go 5 or 6 rounds. There's no way in the world it's going 12, and it did. And it just goes to show how unpredictable boxing can be at times. But I mean, he was always going to win the fight. I don't think he lost a round aside from the one where he had a point deducted, but it was just such a weird fight. I mean, Lawrence Okolie was much better than this guy. It was his first fight under Sugar Hill Stewart, who we've seen likes to implement, quite an aggressive style to his fighters. We've seen Tyson Fury show that, of course, and others in the past, but in recent times, the likes of Tyson Fury, perfect example, totally changed his style from being not negative, but, he's turned him into a very aggressive fighter, very much a come-forward fighter. And Lawrence Okolie, I mean, he seemed to go back to old ways. It looked like the old Lawrence Okolie who people used to hate watching, who liked to hold a lot. And like I say, gets a point deducted for holding in this fight. He was quite exciting under Shane McGuigan. And, I felt that he got a lot of unjust stick that I think was deserved back in the day, but not any time recently because of his good performances. But this here was honestly, such a backward step in terms of how exciting he's been in recent times and how unexciting he used to be. It was like a jump back to those days, which was so weird and kind of doesn't make any sense even now. But how he can be happy with that performance, I do not know. It was just like, okay, he barely took a punch. And, I guess, if he was, I don't know, if he was planning on going for a nice modelling shoot the next day, I'd understand maybe the reason behind his decision to fight like that. But again, as a cruiserweight who can punch, I mean, remember, this guy is known as Lawrence TKO, and yeah, I just don't know. I was just so confused. It's almost as if he put a bet on himself to win on points, because I think the money would have been quite good on that. No one thought he was going to go the distance. Unbelievable. Moving out now, though, to the Telford International Centre in Telford. This one was on BT Sport over here. Moses Itauma now 2-0. Another knockout in the first round. He got in there with the undefeated 2-0 with 1 draw, Ramon Ibarra. Again, gets a first round knockout. Ibarra down prior to the stoppage, so 2-0, 2 first round KOs for Moses Itauma. Still want to see him tested, still only 18 years of age. Elsewhere on the card, Jason Cunningham now 32-7. It was always going to go 10 rounds. He got in there with Miguel Gonzalez, who's now 33-4. It's a good win for Cunningham. I think, Gonzalez really, in my eyes, before the fight, was in with a chance of winning the fight. But yeah, it was quite a bore fest, and both guys are not punchers. It was always going to go 10, like I say. So wasn't the most thrilling fight, and like I say, wasn't very entertaining at all. It was for the vacant WBO International Super Bantamweight title, but good for Cunningham to get a decent scalp on his resume, especially coming off that brutal knockout loss to the South African Zolani Tete. Elsewhere on the card, we did see that rematch, and we did see, a definitive finish now. Nathan Haney, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Jack Flatley. Haney now 17-0, Flatley now 20-4 with a draw. I don't want to see the third fight. I think there's no need. I think Haney is probably a little bit better than a lot of people gave him credit for, or maybe Flatley's not as good as people gave him credit for, but it was for the vacant WBA Continental middleweight title, so it looks like maybe they're going to try to push Haney down the WBA route, which is a bit unusual for a Frank Warren fighter. But having said that, there were a lot of regional belts on the line on this card, and we saw the WBO regional title, a WBA and a WBC regional title on the line. So yeah, interesting, but yeah, good stuff for Haney. Good stuff for Haney. I think he's definitely getting a lot better. I think he got a lot of stick again early on that I think was quite unjust. And I think he's improving all the time, and he's got a hunger for the sport, and obviously brings a brilliant atmosphere, brings a bunch of paying fans, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I quite like it. I'm on the hype train, maybe, perhaps. I don't think it wasn't the main event in the end, but it should have been. It was definitely another contender for Fight of the Year. Andrew Kane, 10-0. I think he had 9 KOs going in. A split decision loss over 10 rounds to Iron Up Baluta, and I know I'm saying that first name wrong. He's now 16-4. Baluta down twice in the first round, Kane down once in the 9th round. It was for the WBC International Silver Super Bantamweight title. Again, just a fight that no one probably thought would be as good as what it was. Andrew Kane, like I say, big puncher. A lot of people were tipping him to actually knock Baluta out when no one had knocked Baluta out before. They thought Kane could be the guy to do it. I wasn't so sure, and I fancied Baluta for a slight upset. And he was quite a big price as well. And obviously I know myself, I've watched Baluta many times. I've even seen him spar behind closed doors. The guy spars exactly like how he fights. He throws a billion shots, and he's tough as hell, doesn't stop coming forward, doesn't stop throwing. Very hard to deter. And I was intrigued because he was getting in with Kane, who, on paper, in terms of knockout percentages and stuff, was probably the biggest puncher he'd been in with as a pro. We've seen him in there with the likes of, obviously, your David Oliver Joyces, your Michael Conlons, and TJ Doheny. These guys are not big punchers, but Andrew Kane, big puncher, strong for the weight, solid fighter, good prospect, but obviously bit off a bit more than he could chew. And, I don't know if he emptied the tank a little bit in the first round and maybe got a bit tired as the fight went on, but Baluta just kept on coming, and credit to him. He made the fight a brilliant fight. He was hurt, a couple times in the fight, obviously down twice in the first, but he battled back as we should have known he'd do, and obviously managed to bloody up the face of Kane in the end. And I think it was his nose, Andrew Kane, it was really bothering him, and like I say, down in the 9th round, and I think the rightful winner in the end. Brilliant stuff for Baluta. I think it was really, really impressive, and really happy for him. But Andrew Kane can come again. They were saying that they still think he's going to be a world champion in the future. I think that's a bit strong given what we just saw there to Baluta, but nonetheless, all the best to him in his comeback. Moving out now to the Save Mart Arena in Fresno, California, USA. Over here, Sinisa Estrada now 24-0. I was going to say a defense, but it was actually a unification with the undefeated Tina Ruprecht as well. It was for the WBC and WBA minimum weight world titles. 10 2-minute rounds, unanimous decision for Estrada, 24-0. Ruprecht now 12-1 with a draw. Estrada, she was the favourite, big favourite going in for good reason. Think she's got a hell of a lot of skills. Obviously, only a minimum weight. Can punch as well, fairly hard for her size as well. But I thought it was going to go the distance, and I thought she'd win on points, and that is what happened. So good stuff for her. She boxed really well, disciplined, and got the job done. And in the main event, obviously, Jose Carlos Ramirez now 28-1, a KO in round 11 against Richard Comey now 30-5 with a draw. Comey down twice in round 11. It was eliminated there for the WBC super lightweight title. Just briefly from me on it, I mean, it was an exciting fight early on, actually, but Ramirez just started to take over, and I was quite impressed by Ramirez. You know, he took some good shots as well, showed a good beard, but came back and just had too much for Commey, you know, too much for Commey. I'm not entirely sure how much Commey's got left. Obviously, he was outsized. We knew that going in, but yeah, I think it's a big statement there to get Commey out of there. You know, it's something that Lomachenko couldn't do. Obviously, Lomachenko also is a lot smaller than Ramirez, but I just think that you can look at this win here on paper and say it's an impressive win, and it's one of Ramirez's best wins of his career. You know, he was very, very disciplined and boxed a really good fight. And like I say, there were good moments in there, some really good back and forths, but all round, he just had the answers for Commey. And yeah, Commey taking that body shot in the 11th round and deciding to stay on one knee while he was counted out and shaking his head. I mean, it wasn't really a good look for those that like to jump on the Q word. But, you know, it is what it is. Moving out now to this one. It's the final card to mention. I'm going to come to you, Eddie, in a second, so be ready. But let's talk about the undercard. Chris Colbert with a bit of a gift decision in many people's eyes. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Jose Valenzuela, who's now 12-2. Colbert now 17-1. A lot of people felt he was extremely lucky there. I think he was even down in the early part of that fight, if I'm not mistaken. Elsewhere on the card, Jesus Ramos now 20-0, a TKO for him in round 7 against Joseph Spencer, now 16-1. Spencer down in round 1 as well. Joey Spencer loses his O. It's a fight I think didn't really need to happen. I think Joey Spencer obviously was thrown in the deep end here a little bit too soon. I think they could have moved him a bit better than that. Cody Crowley now 22-0, another really good fight. He got in there with Abel Ramos. It was a majority decision over 12 rounds. Again, Ramos was always going to come to fight. I knew that, and he certainly pushed Crowley as well in those mid rounds. Ramos 27-6 with 2 draws, much better than his record suggests. Cody Crowley, though, certainly on a really good run now, and you know, obviously a title fight I think incoming for him. But the main event, obviously, I should have mentioned MGM Grand Las Vegas, if I didn't already say, live on Showtime pay-per-view. I'm sure you found a way around it, Eddie. David Benavidez now 27-0, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Caleb Plant, now 22-2. It was for the interim WBC World Super Middleweight title. Once again, Eddie, what a fight.
Yeah, man. I actually bought the card. I wanted to see this so bad that, you know, I said, you know what, I'm just going to stream it on, I think it was Showtime, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I streamed it. And I watched every fight on the card. I seen the Chris Colbert fight. Yeah, I could say it was, I could say that was a gift. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to, you know, because he went down early and he kept getting hurt. He kept getting caught with good shots. But we're not talking about that one. I'm sorry. I digress. But yeah,
no, it's okay. I didn't know you saw the whole card. Just
yeah. I saw the whole card. I saw that Joey Spencer, and it's funny when you were saying it. I was thinking, I was like, you know, when Joey Spencer fought, he was the one who actually pressed for it. He wanted that fight, which is kind of crazy. But I mean, you know, some guys are a little bit, I don't want to say delusional, because I don't know. Maybe he really believed that he was, you know, good enough to handle that at that stage. But he really wanted. I think he was the one saying that you know, he set himself up essentially. I think it was in the build up to the fight. So, and of course the other fight, you know, with what's the guy? He had been homeless at some point. I can't remember his name at the moment. You had just mentioned it. I can't remember exactly what the name was. Cody Crowley, yeah. You know, him and it was Abel Ramos, right, that it fought. That was the other kid's brother, right? Well, you know, I was a little bit annoyed by it. I mean, I understand boxing, you know, it's not a tickle contest, you know what I'm saying? But there are certain rules and certain things that were going on with Cody Crowley, which I don't mind him being as busy, but some of the tactics were a little bit like, you know, you want to give, like, you know, warnings for holding. And you know what's crazy about that is that I watched in the main event, Kenny Bayless wasn't given any warnings or holdings or anything like that to Taylor Plant. And then but then I watched this fight, and obviously that's not the same ref. But it was like, if you would not warn Caleb Plant for any of that, then you look at some of the stuff that he was doing, and it was like, I guess they just wasn't paying attention to those things that, on that day. It was just like, it was just so, I thought in certain instances, the reffing was a little bit like, could have been better. You know what I mean? Especially in the main event. But I think at the end of the day, Cody Crowley would have ended up winning the fight, but he did start getting caught, and he got caught with a really nice shot in, I think, the 9th round, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he didn't actually go down, but I think when it happened, it was actually better if he did go down, because I think if Ramos was able to get to him after that, he would have really put him down. It may have put him out, because that can happen in that situation. So he actually got the benefit of the rest from the knockdown, but once they looked at the replay, they took away the point, or they gave him back the point. So it turned out that he didn't actually get the deduction for the 10-8 round. So he got the recovery time for it, and still didn't get the point. You know what I mean? Which is kind of great for him. But all in all, that fight was really good as well. But as far as the main event was definitely, it should have been the main event. That was one hell of a fight. Caleb Plant did what we talked about, Joe, early, and boxed really well. He did some good things. He actually kept I was going to say Jose. David Benavidez a little bit on the defensive, a little more than he usually would be. You know what I mean? He's normally offensive-minded, combination kind of fighter. But what Caleb Plant was doing with the feints and the up and down and changing levels, just different things he was doing, even combination punching at times, kind of kept Benavidez on the back foot a little more than he should have been. Even though he was still trying to press the action, he still was a lot more hesitant than you would ever have seen him. So you got to give Caleb Plant credit there. However, once the fight hits round 6, 7, and he started to really press the action, it got to the point where I thought that he was going to stop him at any point. It could have been anywhere from 9 to 12, actually, that I thought he was going to stop him, but gave credit to Caleb Plant because he showed a big-time heart and kept trying to fight. He kept trying to, he would even try to catch him, but it was just everything was out of him at that time. You know what I mean? Benavidez, as advertised, one hell of a dude. It's going to be hard to beat that kid. His motor is crazy. And he's a puncher as well, which is crazy. A lot of times guys who throw so many punches and they're so active like that generally aren't the biggest of punchers, but he has a good crack on top of it. And like I said, I give Caleb Plant credit for going the distance because I just didn't see it. I didn't think he was going to be able to make it, but one hell of a fight. I loved watching it. It was worth the $70. You know what I mean? That I spent to see it. Hopefully both of these guys get an opportunity to get back in there soon. You know what I mean? And Caleb Plant obviously to get back onto his winning ways, and Benavidez to just continue to ascend. I would like to see Benavidez get that fight with Canelo too, because that would be a hell of a fight, one interesting fight. It won't be the same, I don't think. You know what I mean? But he won't overwhelm Canelo the same way, I don't think. I think it'll be a very good fight, but I don't think that will happen. And I think Canelo's punching power would definitely play a part. And also keeping Benavidez a little bit on the back foot, not as busy as he normally would be, kind of like Caleb Plant did early. So, like I said, it's an interesting fight to look forward to, and hopefully it happens soon.
Hopefully it happens soon. Obviously, Canelo has to deal with John Ryder before that. John Ryder, I think, will probably be on next week's show, so hopefully that happens. But anyway, my take on the Benavidez-Plant fight, I think I pretty much saw it a lot of the same as you did, Eddie, to be honest with you. I gave round 1 to Caleb Plant. It was obviously just a feel-out round, but I gave it to him. I think it really could have gone either way, to be honest, but I think he probably just about edged it. Round 2, I gave to Plant as well. Felt he was boxing really smart, kept Benavidez behind his jab. Plant's jab as well, I'm sure I've said it many times before, but right up there with one of the best jabs in boxing. I like the way he was measuring Benavidez. It was really smart stuff. Round 3, Benavidez had a bit more success in that round. He was just, walking down Plant constantly, and when the pair would exchange on the inside, Benavidez obviously had the edge in power and speed, and Plant would often lose the battle in those little exchanges there. But Plant was very switched on also, and although I gave Benavidez that third round, it was still close. I think Benavidez, one thing I noticed anyway, was that he just wasn't phased at all with Plant's punches, but probably a little frustrated with Plant as well, making him miss a lot in that first 3 rounds, to be honest. Round 4, a beautiful round for Caleb Plant in that fourth. More excellent smart boxing. He was making Benavidez fall short with his shots. Plant was using his fantastic head movement. The feints that you alluded to as well, Eddie, were brilliant. We were seeing everything really from Plant, and that was when again we started to see that strategic holding that he was implementing as part of his game plan. Caleb's jab again, I think, was winning him the fight. I had it 3-1 to Plant after 4 rounds. Round 5 was a close one. Again, Plant made Benavidez miss a lot, and even at one time he did the old matador move where, where did that punch go? It was over there somewhere. But it was a close round. I don't think he, it was that smooth for Caleb Plant. Now, I agree that the turning point kind of came around the mid-rounds, but sadly, I didn't pay anything for the fight, and my stream cut out, so I actually missed rounds 6 and 7, so I'm glad that you saw it all and filled in those gaps there. And when I got back in the start of round 8, obviously I saw a huge round for Benavidez there. It seemed like he started to finally get to Plant, and Plant again was doing more holding. It was quite excessive. It was smart, but it was excessive, and that was, I think, the round where we saw the cut on Plant's nose, and it seemed to be causing him a few issues. It seemed like he was starting to unravel a bit, and Benavidez was starting to load up, savage mode activated. Round 9, another Benavidez round, was really starting to take over. Plant again starts to look tired at that point, starts to look a bit overwhelmed. Round 10, a massive round for Benavidez. Plant wasn't even throwing back really, and I felt that the referee or the corner should have been having a look there. I did think a stoppage was imminent, and Benavidez was getting more and more spiteful as the rounds went on at that point, and Plant was just holding and bleeding, like I say, not really throwing back. Round 11, another huge round for Benavidez. I thought that he might get a stoppage a few times in that round, and I was expecting a big 12th as well. And then the 12th round, I actually think, was quite a close one, really. I think Caleb saved a little something for that 12th and final round. But yeah, ignore my scorecard. I don't even think I've totaled it up, to be honest with you. But like I say, I missed round 6 and 7 where the turning point seemed to take place. But yeah, I think Plant obviously did really well to go 12 rounds. Not many people do that with Benavidez, and yeah, definitely had success early in the fight. Obviously showed unquestionable heart. Definitely could have been saved and pulled out, but obviously wouldn't have wanted it to end like that for him. And great to see two men put aside their rivalry at the end and show that good sportsmanship as well, which we don't always see, but when we do, it's really refreshing, especially in boxing. This isn't a game of soccer or a game of basketball where there's, rivalries and then at the end we see a handshake. This is two men trying to take each other's heads off that, say they love each other, have a hug, and, almost create that kind of that bond that is hard to imagine for guys that don't fight. And you just go, wow, these guys tried to take each other's heads off, and now they're like kissing each other's kids and stuff. Like they're like good friends now. It's lovely to see when we see it done properly. That's about it though for the review part of the show. There was a lot to cover there, so that's it for that. The final thing for me to do in this part is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated world-ranked super-featherweight contender. He's one of the most avoided fighters in boxing. It is, of course, Mr. Albert Bell. Albert, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thanks for having me back, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Albert. So we last spoke back in September. It wasn't that long ago. You obviously haven't boxed since then, but you do finally have a date now, May 13th, at home in Toledo. You'll be boxing William Encarnacion, the Dominican 2012 Olympian. Tell me what you know about your opponent, my man.
Not too much. I know he fought some guys on the top rank. On the top rank side, they used them a couple times to test their guys, such as like Adam Lopez and Abraham Nova. So I seen a little bit of him, but that's all I really know about him. I know he's a tough fighter, tough competitor, and he has a good record. So I'm just looking forward to getting back in the ring getting my first fight of 2023 underway.
Yeah, for sure. And as you mentioned there, obviously, he had that close fight with Adam Lopez, who I rate as a good fighter. You'll be defending your WBO, NABO title as well. Obviously, this guy is coming for your ranking. He can punch as well. Are you expecting a hard fight here, Albert?
No, not really. I don't really expect none of my fights to be hard because of my style. So, I'm just gonna give him a good boxing lesson, and look to perform and be dominant per usual, as long as the fight goes.
And the last time we spoke, you were heavily linked with the UK's Archie Sharp. You even called him out, which is something I never thought I'd see you call anyone out. We were hoping that you'd be fighting him next. From your point of view, what exactly happened? Because you had obviously back and forths on Twitter. It looked positive, it looked respectful, but what seemed to happen for it to go wrong?
That fight still is in the making. It was some hold ups, with a few things, but hopefully the later this year we could try to still make that fight happen, because he wants to fight, I want to fight. He's highly avoided, I'm highly avoided. We have about the same record. We both top 3 in the world. He's number 1, I'm number 3. So we just trying to get the WBO to make it a final eliminator, so that the winner of us can fight the winner of Oscar Valdez versus Emilio Navarrete, and we just trying to get it all in writing. I had a car. I was involved in a bad car accident earlier this year. So once they did finally kind of like come with something, it was like April 14th, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was just like shaking back from my injury. So it was no way possible I was even going to be able to make weight that quick, let alone be ready for a fight. So, so they moved along with their plans April 14th. I got something real quick May 13th. And, we both win, and hopefully we can revisit the conversation immediately, and let's line it up. And we're just trying to make sure it's for the final eliminator.
Yeah, which of course makes perfect sense. Now, I had no idea about you being involved in a car crash, Albert. Tell me what happened with that.
Yeah. I was in the passenger seat of a car, and my friend came around a bend too fast. And next thing you know, we is almost upside down, So my foot got banged up and my right hand got banged up in the accident. So I just took some time off. I had to shake back from the injuries because I could barely walk at the time, without a boot. So I'm back in training, back looking good and sharp, and back sparring. So I'm ready for whatever now. But at that time, when they told me April, it was no way I couldn't even walk right at that time.
Wow. And your friend's name isn't Errol Spence by any chance?
No. Yeah, and that is my friend, but that's not the friend I was with.
Albert, on a more kind of serious note, I wanted to touch on it as well. I mean, since we last spoke, you tragically lost your mother. Judging by your social media, it seemed like it hit you real hard. How are you in regards to that now, my man?
Yeah, it's tough. It's hard to live life without somebody you didn't see it with. We all know it's coming one day, but for it to actually hit home, and it's tough. It's a battle every day. And it's so fresh still. It just happened in January. It's only March, so I'm battling with it every day. It's an emotional roller coaster, up and down. But I'm just trying to stay focused and work through the pain, and just do the thing that she birthed me to do, which is boxing, to be a champion and continue on, and just, carry her memory in a positive manner, and not hang my head too much, and just do the things I know she would want me to do, which is carry on and keep being great.
Yeah, because your mother was a big supporter of your career.
For sure.
Yeah. And can you take some kind of, I mean, I guess you kind of answered this question, but I was going to ask, can you take some kind of motivation from her passing? I know it's obviously,
for sure.
It's very sad, but if you can take a positive away and add that to your mindset in your career, it can be a good thing in some crazy way, if that makes sense.
Yes, most definitely. It's just fuel to my fire, fuel to my passion, fuel to my hunger, my desire. It's easy for me to block things out, It's really just making me want to get in there, and show and prove, and just do things because I'm really salty and irritated with it because, you know, I was supposed to have been a world champion if things would have went right. You know, I was been supposed to get my mama handed my first world title if the politics of boxing and being blackballed and being ducked and avoided wasn't in the picture. So now they got to pay for that. So, you know, I'm definitely on a mission.
Brilliant to hear, man. God bless you. And since we last spoke, the 130-pound division, your division, has gained a new champion, O'Shaquie Foster. He upset the odds against Ray Vargas. What's your opinion on Foster, Albert?
I didn't think it was upset. O'Shaquie's a slick boxer, you know what I mean? He is another avoided guy. You know, it's a lot of myself avoided, O'Shaquie Foster was avoided, and over in the UK, Archie Sharp was avoided, you know? So it's some guys that is avoided in the division. You know, it just don't work out all the time where we're trying to fight each other or whatever the case may be. But he is one of those guys that was, you know, had the politics against him and things like that as well. So it's happy to see an underdog win. I watched the fight. He boxed brilliant. He looked good. I'll box him every round. I'm happy for him that he got his chance and his shot, you know, and I wish him the best.
And obviously, again, when we last had you on, we spoke about your sparring with Lomachenko. He's now fighting Devin Haney 1 week after your fight. How do you see that fight playing out, my man?
Yeah, I sparred Devin his last camp as well, too. So I've been there with both guys. I sparred Devin a few times. First time I sparred Devin, we was kids. We sparred again a few years ago. Then we sparred again his last camp. Devin, he's going into his prime. He's settling into his grown man strength and all the things that make sure he's sharp right now. Lomachenko he's peaking in his career. You know, he's at the last little bit to be great. You know, they need to pull it off. So I know he's come with everything. He knocked the ring rust off after the year of being away from the sport against Jermaine Ortiz. It wasn't his best performance, but I think he'll be more prepared for this fight. And I think Devin is just cooking on all cylinders right now. So I just think it's a great fight. On paper, you know, Devin's going to be the favorite, I believe. But it's just about getting in there and executing the game plan because I know Lomachenko's bringing his best foot forward. But Devin's the much bigger man. He's got youth on his side. They both have great boxing IQs. I'm just ready to see a good fight. You know, I'm definitely going to go out there and be in attendance. And, you know, I was wishing the best. But I'm real close to Devin, so I'm pulling for Devin. You know, that's my guy.
There we go. It's going to be a fantastic fight. And my final real question for you before we let you go, Albert. I don't know if you care much about it, but obviously a big fight takes place in the UK this weekend. American Jermaine Franklin comes over to face Anthony Joshua, who, of course, is coming off back-to-back losses. Do you have a view on that fight?
Not really. I know Joshua's been over here working with Coach Derek, who's a great trainer. You know, I just want to see how it pay off. I really never seen Jermaine fight, though. You know, I know Joshua is a great fighter. You know, he's dared to be great against the best. You know, he only lost to some of the best fighters. So I'm just looking to see what he does. You know, I wish both guys the best, you know, and I hope they have just a great performance and put on a great show for the fans and be an entertaining fight and may the best man win.
May the best man win. I'm excited for it. I'm sure a lot of others are as well. And just finally, Albert, if you've got any closing words just to the listeners, if you want to sign out with a message before we let you go, say whatever you like, my man.
You know, just stay tuned in, you know, keep supporting. I keep it, you know, all the way real and live and how it's going, truthful and honest. I'm a truthful fighter. You know, I'm one of the best out there. I'm just waiting on my time. And God willing, it's coming soon. And y'all see me with a world title.
God willing, my man. Like I say, May the 13th is the first stop. Get that out of the way, then the big fights are next. I'm sure they will be. Listen, Albert, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Thanks for your time. Best of luck May 13th, and we'll speak sometime afterwards.
Likewise. Thank you. Appreciate you for having me. Stay blessed.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. It takes place, it's a fight announcement. It takes place on May the 13th at the Stockton Arena. It's going to be live on ESPN. We're going to see Yanibek Alim Kanuli. Again, I think many people say his name a bit different, but I think we all agree that his first name is definitely Janibek, or I just said Yanibek, so God knows. But anyway, he gets in with Stephen Butler. That is An interesting fight, really. I mean, it's for the WBO middleweight world title, but Stephen Butler, obviously 32-3, you know, been banged out on all 3 occasions where he's lost the fight. Got knocked out in 5 by Murata, knocked out in 5 by Jose Macias, knocked out in 7 by Brandon Cook. I don't want to say it's a gimme fight, but it's a fight that Alim Kanuli shouldn't really have much trouble in. I mean, I say that, I thought the same about Denzel Bentley when he obviously took him the distance, which was quite surprising. But yeah, that's the fight to mention. That's the main event. And also for the vacant WBO World Bantamweight title, we're going to see Australia's Jason Maloney, 25-2, getting in there with Vincent Astrolabio as well, who I think I saw fight someone. Oh yeah, he fought Rigondo, beat Rigondo in one of the biggest upsets of 2022. He had Rigondo down in round 8 and beat him unanimously over 10 rounds. So that's where I know that name from. So that could be quite interesting, but all the best there to Jason Maloney. And then, of course, it's official now. It's been announced. I think we all kind of knew it was happening anyway behind the scenes. But yeah, undisputed lightweight champion Devin Haney defends all the titles against Vasily Lomachenko May 20th at the MGM Grand Garden in Las Vegas, live on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. I don't know if that's a new platform or whatever, but it's going to be a fantastic fight. We're all going to be watching, I'm sure. That's it for the news, though. Moving on now to the preview part of the show. I'm going to start here with this one. It takes place, I'm going to say tonight, because this podcast will be going out on a Friday. So yeah, it takes place tonight. It's going to be live on Channel 5 at the York Hall, Bethnal Green, London. Always great to have a fight card there. But on the undercard, we're going to see Abbas Barao, 12-1. He gets in with Ferenc Katona, who's 11-9 with 3 draws. Harry Scarf, this could be a good one here. It's definitely, I think, going to go the distance. Harry Scarf, 11-2, gets in with Jordan Dujon, who is 8-1. That is over 10 rounds for the vacant WBO European Super Welterweight title. Jordan Dujon, 3-1 underdog, 4-1 on points. His price. Very, very tempting price there, and Harry Scarf, the clear favourite, but yeah, that one's got points written all over it. Nick Parper as well on the card, 10-1. He gets in with Michael Webster, who's 7-0. It's for the vacant English cruiserweight title over 10 rounds. But the main event, friend of the show, Harlem Eubank, 16-0, gets in with Christian Uruzquieta. That is over 10 rounds. Uruzquieta is 21-5 with 2 draws. Obviously, all the best to Harlem Eubank. Didn't really have the easiest of times last time out, getting in there with Tom Farrell. Had a moment of madness a little bit in that fight. But yeah, obviously. Oh wow! Just as I'm talking, I've just realised that no, Uruzquieta is out of the fight. I was quite looking forward to that because that's annoying. I was looking forward to that because yeah, obviously Uruzquieta, we'd seen him fight Lewis Ritson in the past, but no, it appears here that they've got a late replacement, Miguel Antin, who's 20-11 with a draw, been knocked out 5 times. This is the first time I've heard of this guy, so bear with. Oh boy. Okay, wow. Racked up a bunch of wins early on, then started the losing streak. Got knocked out in a round by Jeremias Ponce. Got knocked out by a few other guys. Went the distance. Lost unanimously to Yvonne Mendy back in 2020. Lost to Kane Gardner. Wow. Okay, this is easy pickings here for Harlem Eubank. Could be a knockout, really. That's thrown me off a bit, but all the best to Harlem anyway. But yeah, it doesn't look like his opponents had much notice. Probably like 48 hours or something like that. Moving out now to the National Stadium in Dublin, Ireland. Over here, friend of the show, Jason Quigley, 19-2, gets in with Kim Poulsen, who's 30-6. That's over 10 rounds there at super middleweight. All the best to Jason Quigley. Had him on the show years ago, to be honest with you, but like I say, once you've been on the show once, you're a friend of the show for life. And all the best to him in his quest here to, I guess, get back to, world rankings and stuff. I don't think he's currently in possession of a world ranking, but I'd like to see him get back there. It's interesting. I think he's also the promoter of the show as well, so I'm not sure if he has promoted any other cards in the past, but all the best to him, promoting and fighting in the main event. Moving out now to the big one of the weekend. It goes down at the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. It's going to be live on DAZN, and it's not on DAZN pay-per-view anywhere. So, obviously fantastic for UK fight fans as well that Anthony Joshua is not on pay-per-view for the first time in I'm not entirely sure how long. Anyway, we're gonna get to that main event in a minute, but let's start with the undercard. We're gonna see Campbell Hatton 10-0 getting in there with Lewis Fielding, who's 10-7. That's over 8 rounds there, so quite active. Campbell Hatton has been recently. I think he boxed less than a month ago, actually. So, he did 6 rounds on that occasion, gets in with Lewis Fielding. I've got a sneaky suspicion that he might actually stop Lewis Fielding, but I don't think he has much trouble with him at all. Moving up the card once again, we're going to see John Hedges, 7-0, getting in there with Daniel Bosianski, who's 11-2. It's over 8 rounds there at light heavyweight. I wondered where I'd saw that name before, Bosianski, but I remember he went the distance with Tommy Fury. That's where I know him from. I remember him being quite tough and quite a big sort of tall guy. Obviously John Hedges is massive as well, but I'd expect Hedges to probably win that one on points. We're going to see Jordan Flynn 8-0 getting in there with Kane Baker, who's 18-9 with a draw. Kane Baker always comes to win, but obviously he's quite limited. It's over 8 rounds. I'd expect Jordan Flynn to win that one on points as well. One that I definitely don't see going points is Fabio Wardley, 15-0. He gets in there with Michael Polite Coffey, 13-3. Obviously Wardley on a heck of a run, 14 knockouts, and he's coming off 14 in a row. He went the distance the only time ever in his career in his pro debut back in April 2017. So that's crazy, 6 years ago, and ever since then he's been banging everyone out most of the time within all of the times within 5 rounds, which is mad. The only person actually that took within 6 rounds, sorry. Eric Molina took him to 5, but Mariano Struns took him to 6. But in recent times, wow, he's on a really good run. Nathan Gorman round 3, Chris Healy round 2, Daniel Martz round 2, Nick Webb round 1, Richard Larty round 2, Simon Valili round 3. So I'm expecting him to pretty much do the same to Michael Polite Coffey, even though this is a must-win fight for Coffey. I'm hoping he turns up in some decent shape. If he comes in really big and he hasn't trained properly, then he's just throwing his career away at this point. So hopefully it's a good one. But again, either way, doesn't matter if he comes in great shape or not. I don't think it goes 10 rounds. It's for the vacant WBA Continental Heavyweight title. Elsewhere on the card as well, Galal Yafai 3-0. It's a 10-rounder here. He gets in with Moises Calleros, who is 36-10 with a draw. Calleros been banged out 4 times out of his 10 losses, got knocked out in 2 rounds in his most recent loss to Julio Cesar Martinez. However, we know that he's a real banger. Galal Yafai, I'd obviously expect Galal Yafai to win, probably on points, to be honest with you. Again, on the card, another fight. Austin Ammo Williams, 13-0, gets in with River Wilson Bent, who's 14-2 with a draw. I'm expecting Ammo Williams to win this one by stoppage. River Wilson Bent, I remember obviously being ringside when he lost. He got absolutely pummeled by Hamza Shiraz in just 2 rounds back in November, and that was just mad. But I was more impressed with Shiraz, whose jab was incredible that night. It's a good fight for Williams. It's probably one of the best fighters he'd have been in with just yet. And I don't want to write River Wilson Bent off just because he got smashed by Hamza Shiraz. His only other loss was a real tight split decision to Tyler Denny, and that's really it. I think he's not a terrible fighter, but I just think Austin Ammo Williams probably going to be too big, too strong, too powerful, and just too good, really. So I'm expecting that one to probably end in the distance. I don't know if it will go 10 rounds there at middleweight. Should be a good one either way. And then the main event, I'm going to come to you, Eddie. Anthony Joshua, 24-3, coming off 2 back-to-back defeats to Alexander Usyk. However, in that time, he's managed to bank himself 24 rounds with Usyk. He gets in there with Jermaine Franklin, 21-1. Jermaine Franklin obviously kind of came out of nowhere, really. He was in a lot of UK fight fans' eyes, just another American heavyweight with an undefeated record that we didn't really know much about. Is he another Charles Martin? We don't know. Obviously, we've seen him come over here in his last fight, lost a majority decision over 12 rounds to Dillian Whyte. Extremely controversial. A lot of people felt he nicked it. And yeah, he gets a crack at Anthony Joshua, coming off a loss to Dillian Whyte. So I'm not sure how he's managed to pull that one off. I'm sure he's going to be getting paid handsomely for it. But once again, I mean, he's got a really good opportunity here. And, probably he deserves it. Because if he did do enough to beat Dillian Whyte, it was a fight that I missed because I was at the Zach Parker-John Ryder fight. I never did watch it back, but I heard it was really close. And I heard that Jermaine Franklin deserved the victory. So good for him, I guess, in some ways, to get a big opportunity after, on paper, losing. And Dillian Whyte, obviously, he hasn't got a great opportunity off the back of it. I think what has he done since? Nothing. So, yeah, great for Jermaine Franklin to get this opportunity. But it's all about Anthony Joshua. It's the Anthony Joshua show. Does he return back to winning ways, Eddie? And if he does, is it going to be as explosive and as destructive as the Joshua we used to know before he met Alexander Usyk?
That's a real good question, Joe. And whether or not Anthony Joshua will be back to what he has been in the past. I honestly think he it's hard to say because, having those rounds, like you said, banked with a guy like Usyk, really tricky guy, good boxer, difficult style, pretty much for almost anybody to deal with. But at the same time, having the expectations of people seeing him win, he's supposed to win that fight. You know what I mean? Usyk's coming up to heavyweight. Anthony Joshua was the big, strong destroyer. You know what I mean? It's a lot to have on your back and then not to win and have multiple opportunities. And then you've seen the kind of breakdown that he had at the end of it when, he grabbed the mic and did all that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot that I'm hoping for his sake and for his fans and all that he's able to get past that and just go back to boxing and just go back to being, trying to be the best in the world, not necessarily thinking about how the negative has gone. Try to get back into a positive mindset. Work on your game, honestly. You know what I mean? Because one thing it's hard to say that I've seen him really improve over his last, I don't know, 6-7 fights. I've really, since I guess you want to go all the way back to the Klitschko fight. I mean, he had, he did some good things there, but he just shown how athletic and how strong and how, like I said, athletically gifted he is. You know what I mean? He really hasn't. I don't remember seeing any of the growth in his boxing ability and the things, with the exception of the Andrew Ruiz fight in the second fight. But I think that was out of necessity because he knew he couldn't bang with him. You know what I mean? So he got lighter and he started working on, just boxing from the outside, which was a great thing. But I haven't really seen much else. You know what I'm saying? I think he still is, he from what I've seen, struggles with smaller guys who are good, talented boxers, which actually, funny enough, Jermaine Franklin seems to be pretty decent boxer. He's not a bum, pretty good fighter. You know what I mean? Obviously shown that with Dillian. He's not a real big guy either. You know what I mean? So he's got that little bit of which has been an issue for Joshua. You know what I mean? He's had that, he's not real big. He's got a little bit of a style with him. He got that American, boxing style. You know what I mean? That swagger. So I don't know if that's a problem or going to be a problem for Joshua in this fight. I'm really not sure. I'm hoping for his sake he can get back and if it ever comes down to it, it's like it was like the same thing I said with him and Usyk. I think he shouldn't go in there with the idea of finishing the fight standing. I think he should be going in there with the idea of, man, I got a good 6 to 8 rounds of me just trying to go in and knock this guy's head off. If I don't get it done, oh well. I mean, I guess I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose by stoppage because I'm gonna be too damn tired to finish. But the reality of it is, I don't think he needs to go in there with the idea of, I'm going to go out here and shine and necessarily box this guy and do all of this. I think he needs to go out here with the idea of destroying him, taking him apart. The same thing he should have done with Usyk and not sit there and try to box with him. You understand what I'm saying? look good the next fight. Right now, go out and destroy him. You know what I mean? I think that's what he really needs to do. You know what I mean? And for Franklin, obviously, just go in there and be the spoiler. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of people that are expecting too much from you in this fight, so you don't have a lot of pressure. Go out there and handle business. Do everything that that you can do, and don't let the situation and the stage affect you, which I don't think it will, because he's already been, in with Dillian, and that was a pretty big stage too. So, yeah, you know what I mean? It's an interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it. I kind of saw some of the fight with him and Dillian and with Franklin and Dillian, and I liked some of the things I saw. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's going to be a real interesting fight, I think. And I'm just hoping that regardless of the winner, we can get something good out of it for the heavyweight division.
Yeah, like I say, I think we're all going to be tuned in to see what Anthony Joshua looks like on Saturday night. I think it's all about him, what he has left, what kind of fighter he's going to look like as well under American trainer Derek James, who, for those who don't know, is obviously the man behind Errol Spence, the man behind Jamel Charlo, the 154 undisputed champion. So it's going to be interesting to see that in play as well. Obviously, I'm not aware that Derek James has trained any heavyweights in the past. That's a completely different ball game. So it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, gets in with Jermaine Franklin. 6'2" is what he is listed at, and that brings back haunting memories. If you're Anthony Joshua and you're looking at the statistics, because 6'2", who else is 6'2"? Andy Ruiz. Who else is 6'2"? Alexander Povetkin. Who else is 6'2"? Carlos Takam. These are all guys he struggled with, and obviously Usyk 6'3", and we saw how that went. So he hasn't ever fought good against smaller guys, guys that are 6'2", 6'3". So, you've unmuted, Eddie. Go on.
No, it is exactly what I was saying. You just confirmed it. He seems to have trouble with the smaller, athletic, boxing skill type fighters. You know what I mean? And yeah, and I just that little height range, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty sure it can be smaller or a tiny bit taller, like 6'3", like you said with Usyk. But it's going to be a hell of a thing for him to solve. It's like you got to get the monkey off his back in that. You know what I mean? He's got to be able to go in there and win convincingly. After those situations with those fights with Usyk, he's got to be able to go in there and dominate. That's why I'm saying he needs to go in there with the idea. He's being trained by Derek James. He needs to take a page out of that book. You know what I mean? And be aggressive. It's intelligent aggressiveness, but aggressive. You understand? And I think that will, and I'm not saying he can't box, but in a situation like this where he struggled with these kind of guys, he needs to go out there and destroy. That's what he needs to be focused on.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Eddie. He has to look good, Anthony Joshua. His reputation is now on the line more than ever. Coming off those back-to-back losses, yeah, they were to Usyk, but no one has got Anthony Joshua as the best heavyweight in the world anymore. No one, I don't even think, has him as number 2. Most people don't even have him at number 3. He's number 4 and beyond that. And yeah, it's like, I think in the past he's overlooked guys, and I don't think he thought that there was much danger attached to Andy Ruiz, and he cannot afford to do that with Franklin. But I think Franklin's the kind of guy that you can easily overlook, because he doesn't, he's not this massive puncher. There's nothing about him that suggests it's going to be a tough fight as such. He just doesn't have that X factor about him. So Anthony Joshua needs to really be on the ball here, and we talk about him having to put on a great performance. He's got to dominate. He's got to be brutal. He can't afford a close fight like Dillian Whyte had. His career's on the line very much here. If he loses, that's the end of the road. We need a brutal performance, but again, I look back at his record and the performances of recent times haven't been brutal. I mean, we'd all love to see him go in there and smash the guy out in a round or two and go, wow, he's back. But it just hasn't happened for a long time, and I've touched on it before. Obviously, the 2 back-to-back losses to Usyk. With Pulev, he went 9 rounds. Pulev, I can't even remember how old he was at the time. Obviously, went 12 rounds before that with Ruiz when he outboxed him over 12. Then the fight before that when he lost by stoppage to Andy Ruiz. The fight before that, he went 7 rounds with Povetkin, who again I've forgotten how old he was. The fight before that gone 12 with Joseph Parker. The fight before that went 10 with Carlos Takam. The fight before that went 11 with Vladimir Klitschko. And you've got to go right back to the fight before that, Eric Molina. Eric Molina, 3rd round TKO, when Eric Molina, by the way, was a late replacement, if I remember correctly. And that was, 6 and a bit years ago now, since he's finished someone in the first half of a fight. And, Franklin has shown he's tough. And, I don't think we're going to see a first, like an early finish. I think it goes late. And I think the later it goes, the more interesting it gets. So I'm talking this up a bit, but I'm really, 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 really intrigued just to see what Joshua looks like with all these tangibles, man. New trainer, kind of still a bit of an unknown quantity in terms of the opponent. The height being the dangerous height range. There's so much at play here, and he's in such a terrible position. It is literally, the worst time of his career. He's in trouble. He needs a brutal win, but I don't know if he's going to get it. We're going to see. It's going to be interesting. Moving out now to the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tulsa, Oklahoma, USA. This one goes down on ESPN+. Let's fly through this one as quick as we can here. Heavyweight Jeremiah Milton, 8-0 in an 8-rounder against Fabio Maldonado, 29-6. Emiliano Vargas, 3-0, gets in with Edgar Uval, who is 2-3 with 2 draws. That's over 4 rounds there. Jahi Tucker, 9-0. I think he's only 20 years of age, a young prospect. He gets in with Nicholas Sekniashvili, who is 8-1. Obviously saying that surname wrong, but it is what it is. It's over 8 rounds there. Jahi Tucker, perhaps one to keep an eye on. Again, if I didn't already say, this one's going to be on ESPN+. It's a top-ranked show. The chief support is Joet Gonzalez, 25-3. Real tough guy, Joet Gonzalez. He gets in with another really tough guy, Enrique Vivas. This is over 10 rounds here at featherweight. Vivas 22-2. I'm expecting that to go the distance. Joet Gonzalez probably to get it on points there, but I think it definitely goes the distance. Like I say, 2 real tough guys. And the main event, Robisi Ramirez, 11-1, gets in with the UK's / Ghana's Isaac Dogbe, friend of the show. Really good guy, Isaac. Had him on a few weeks ago. 24-2, the former WBO super bantamweight world champion. Now these days up at featherweight. It's for the vacant WBO world title, of course. Ramirez, massive favourite. Massive favourite. Don't want to go in on it too much, but obviously Ramirez, when he lost his pro debut, we all kind of thought, whoa, this is a gold medalist here. Losing in his pro debut to a guy who wasn't very good. I don't even know if I can remember the guy's name. I know he come back and beat the guy when they had a rematch a few fights later. But lost his first fight. And he's really, I don't want to say improved. I just want to probably say lived up to his expectations more. I think that's probably more accurate there. But he's really been in great form, and he's been very exciting as well. Obviously, you talk about a Cuban and excitement and Cubans. It doesn't really go together in boxing too often. But he brings a breath of fresh air to Cuban boxing, and yeah, he's been knocking people out. He's been stepping up and, passing every test put in front of him. He's got some good names on his resume already in just 13 fights. And, I think it's going to be just 12 fights, I should say. And I think it's going to be a really good fight. Obviously, the way he beat Eric Donovan was really impressive. Abraham Nova. But this is the biggest step up of his entire career, and I always go back to, if he lost to Adan Gonzalez, then he can lose to Isaac Dogbe. But I've said so many times in the past, I love Isaac Dogbe to bits, but the guy should never have moved up to featherweight. Way too small. But I will say that Robisi Ramirez also isn't very tall. He's only 5'5", but, Dogbe is only 5'4", so yeah, he's even smaller than him. But yeah, way too small for the weight, and that's his one problem, And in recent times, to be honest with you, or should I say after those 2 Navarrete fights that he had that were real tough fights, went 24 rounds with Emmanuel Navarrete, took a real hiding in both fights. he hasn't really looked the same guy, dare I say it, you know. A knockout win against Chris Abelos, he wasn't great that night, and then since then, 3 fights, they've all been majority decisions or split decisions. He has won them all, but this is Robeisy Ramirez, who, although doesn't have as strong professional credentials as those other guys, he's shown glimpses of real special talent in his short pro career, and he just may be a little bit too sharp, a little bit too fresh, a little bit too smart, a little bit too skillful for Isaac Dogboe. And yeah, it's going to be a tough one for him, but definitely, you know, an upset wouldn't surprise me. I'd love to see him do it. All the best to Isaac Dogboe, Neho, as he would say. But it's going to be a tough one. Going to be a great fight. Definitely won't be missing that one. And then the final card to mention goes down at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA. It's a card I'm guessing is going to be on some crazy platform. I don't know if it's on Triller or whatever, or it's probably going to end up on Fight TV, where all the crazy fights end up. But the promoter of the show is Jorge Masvidal. That's the UFC guy. But anyway, one fight to mention, just because he's a friend of the show, and it's the living legend, Roy Jones Jr., 66-9. He gets in with Anthony Pettis, who is a UFC fighter making his pro boxing debut. It's over 8 rounds at heavyweight. All the best to Roy Jones Jr. Not going to go in on it, obviously. You know, it's his 76th pro fight, Roy Jones, and I don't think he needs to do this. He's certainly got nothing to prove. Didn't have to prove anything for the last 10 or 15 years, but he just can't stay away from the boxing ring. He loves it too much. But anyway, that is how we're going to end the preview part of the show. In part 1, we did the review part. Then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2, we did the news. We've just wrapped up the preview part. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 389 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to this week's special guest, the world-ranked super-featherweight contender, Mr. Albert Bell. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. I apologise once again for this podcast going out on a Friday rather than a Thursday. We've had a couple of difficulties this week, as we have had the last few weeks. I just wanted to say there has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show. It's that Matchroom have announced 3 new signings. All 3 guys, or I should say guys and girls, are friends of the show. Sonny Edwards, the IBF flyweight world champion. Jack Catterall, who obviously I really just want to see, you know, put into a big fight. Certainly deserves it. I hope Matchroom can deliver for him. And then finally, Shannon Ryan, who of course is also a friend of the show, the undefeated female fighter. So all the best to all 3 of those guys there in their signings here with Matchroom. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Thank you all once again for tuning in, and we shall see you all again this time next week.